Transport yourself to the evening of March 31st, 1922, as you step into a modest farm nestled within the tranquil corners of Bavaria, Germany. This particular evening was far from ordinary. It marked the arrival of a profoundly unsettling occurrence. Situated approximately 70 kilometers to the north of Munich, a picturesque landscape is forever altered by a haunting incident. On this peaceful farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, something unimaginable occurred. 6 people, all part of the same family, met a horrifying fate. Andreas Gruber, a man of 63, his wife Cecilia Gruber, aged 72, their daughter Victoria Gabriel, who was 35 and a widow, Victoria's 2 children, Cecilia, who was just 7, and Joseph, a toddler of 2 years. Completing the group was the farm's maid, Maria Baumgartner, who was 44 years old. All met a terrible end, struck down by a mattock. The person who did this didn't run away. Instead they stayed with the lifeless bodies of the victims for 3 whole days. Try to imagine the fear and confusion that would have gripped that farm during those days. It turned into a scene of horror, with 4 of the victims stacked up as if they were lured one by one, but before the tragedy, there were signs that something was amiss, and yet despite these chilling warnings, nobody could have predicted what happened next. Approximately 6 months prior to the murders, the household's maid had resigned from her position. It is widely asserted that her departure stemmed from her claims of hearing peculiar noises within the attic, which led her to believe that the residence was plagued by supernatural manifestations. In March 1922, Andreas Gruber encountered an unusual newspaper originating from Munich on the property. Strangely, he had no recollection of purchasing it, leading him to speculate that the newspaper had been misplaced by the postman. However, further investigation revealed that this was not the case, as no individuals in the vicinity were known to be subscribers to the publication. In the days immediately preceding the tragic murders, Gruber informed neighbors about his discovery of tracks in the freshly fallen snow, which extended from the nearby forest to a broken door lock within the farm's machinery room. Additionally, one night, the inhabitants of the farm heard footsteps emanating from the attic. Gruber conducted a thorough search of the premises, yet he found no intruders. Despite sharing these alleged observations with several individuals, he declined assistance offers and neglected to report these details to the local authorities. During the afternoon of Friday, March 31, 1922, Maria Baumgartner, the recently appointed maid, arrived at the farm. Accompanied by her sister, Maria was escorted to the farm premises, after which her sister departed following a brief visit. It is plausible that Maria's sister was among the final individuals to have encountered the residents prior to their demise. Evidently, during the later hours of the evening, the family members, Victoria, her daughter Cecilia, as well as her parents Andreas and Cecilia, were enticed into the family barn through the stable. There, they were systematically murdered, one after another. The responsible party or parties employed a mattock, sourced from the family farm to execute fatal blows to the victims' heads. Subsequently, the perpetrator or perpetrators progressed into the residential quarters, where they utilized the same murder weapon to end the lives of Joseph, who was asleep in his bassinet, and Maria, who was within her sleeping quarters. On April 1st, 2 coffee merchants arrived in Hinterkaifeck with the intention of placing an order. Despite their attempts to solicit a response by knocking on the door and window, their efforts yielded no acknowledgement. Having conducted a thorough survey of the premises, they noted the open gate to the machine house, before choosing to depart. It was also noted that Cecilia Gabriel was conspicuously absent from school for several days without a valid reason, and the family was notably absent from Sunday worship services. On April 4th, assembler Albert Hoffner visited Hinterkaifeck to undertake engine repairs. He attested to not encountering any members of the household, and being met only by the ambient sounds of farm animals and the barn's resident dog. After waiting for an hour, he commenced his repairs, a task that took approximately 4.5 hours to complete. Around 3:30 p.m. on the same day, Lorenz Schlittenbauer dispatched his 2 sons to Hinterkaifeck in an attempt to establish contact with the family. Upon their return with news of their inability to locate anyone, Schlittenbauer himself journeyed to the farm with his 2 companions. Upon entering the barn, they encountered the lifeless bodies of Andreas, Kazilia, Victoria, and young Kazilia. Shortly thereafter, they discovered the deceased chambermaid, Maria, along with the youngest member of the family, Joseph, within the interior of the homestead. The initial phase of the inquiry was hindered by the considerable number of individuals who had interacted with the crime scene. The manipulation of bodies and objects, as well as the preparation and consumption of meals within the kitchen area, contributed to complicating the early examinations. Following the discovery of the bodies, on the subsequent day, the court physician conducted autopsies within the barn. These examinations ascertained that a mattock stood as the probable instrument of the murders, although the weapon itself was absent from the scene. Forensic indications revealed that the younger Kazilia had survived for several hours subsequent to the assault, as evident by her pulling out tufts of her own hair while lying amidst the straw. Notably, the victim's cranial remains were extracted and dispatched to Munich for further analysis. Initially leaning towards the hypothesis of robbery as the motivating factor, the police subjected itinerant craftsmen, transient individuals, and residents of neighboring villages to interrogation. This line of inquiry was abandoned upon the discovery of a substantial sum of money on the premises. It became apparent that the perpetrator or perpetrators had remained present at the farm for an extended duration. Substantive clues included the provision of sustenance to the cattle, the complete consumption of bread from the kitchen, and the recent dissection of meat from the pantry. Given the absence of a discernible motive derived from the crime scene itself, the law enforcement authorities initiated the formulation of a list of potential suspects. The official inspection report conducted by the court commission documented that it was presumed the victims had been drawn to the barn due to restlessness among the animals in the stable, resulting in auditory disturbances. Subsequent attempts, however, revealed that human screams originating from the barn were not audible within the living area. On the night following the crime, 3 days prior to the discovery of the bodies, artisan Michael Plockel coincidentally passed by Hinterkaifeck. He observed signs of recent oven use, and an individual holding a lantern approached him, momentarily blinding him, after which he promptly continued his journey. Plockel also remarked on the unpleasant odor emanating from the fireplace. Despite this incident, no further investigation ensued, and inquiries into what may have been incinerated in the oven that night were not undertaken. In the early hours of April 1st, at 3 a.m., farmer and butcher Simon Reislander, while en route near Brunnen, encountered 2 enigmatic figures situated at the forest's edge. Upon realizing they had been spotted, the strangers turned away to obscure their faces. Subsequently, upon learning of the murders in Hinterkaifeck, Reislander speculated that these individuals could have been somehow connected to the crime. In mid-May 1927, a peculiar event occurred when an unidentified stranger accosted a resident of Waidhofen at midnight. The stranger made inquiries about the murder before abruptly declaring their responsibility as the murderer and swiftly disappearing into the woods. The identity of this stranger remained elusive and unresolved. Carl Gabriel was the spouse of the widowed Victoria Gabriel. According to reports, he met his demise in December 1914, during the events of the First World War, as a result of a shell attack in Arras, France. However, his remains have never been recovered. Following the tragic murders, speculation emerged regarding the validity of his wartime death. It came to light that Victoria had conceived and given birth to her son, Joseph, in the absence of her husband. There circulated rumors that Joseph was the outcome of an incestuous relationship between Victoria and her father Andreas. This disconcerting revelation was documented in legal proceedings, and became known within the village. Andreas was implicated in the heinous act of violating his own daughter, leading to their conviction for incest. Subsequent to the conclusion of the Second World War, were detainees originating from the Schrobenhausen region, who were released prematurely from Soviet captivity, alleged that they had been sent back to their homeland by a Soviet officer fluent in German. This officer claimed to be the perpetrator of the murders. Nevertheless, certain individuals in this group later revised their statements, casting doubt on their credibility. Many theories circulated, suggesting that the Soviet officer in question might have been Karl Gabriel. This supposition was prompted by accounts from those who claimed to have encountered Gabriel subsequent to his purported demise. These accounts indicated that Gabriel had expressed a desire to journey to Russia. In the aftermath of his first wife's passing in 1918, Lorenz Schlittenbauer came to be associated with a presumed liaison with Victoria Gabriel, allegedly resulting in the birth of Joseph. Early in the investigation, local suspicions converged on Schlittenbauer due to a series of perplexing actions he undertook immediately after the discovery of the victims' bodies. When Schlittenbauer and his companions arrived to inspect the scene, they found the barn's doors to be locked, prompting them to break a gate for entry. Notably, upon encountering the 4 deceased individuals within the barn, Schlittenbauer promptly unlocked the front door using a key, allowing himself to enter the house in a solitary manner, a move that raised suspicions. Prior to the murders, a key to the house had gone missing, although it remained plausible that Schlittenbauer, being a neighbor or a potential romantic interest of Victoria, might have been provided with a key. When questioned by his companions regarding his solo entry into the house despite the potential risk of encountering the killer, Schlittenbauer purportedly claimed he was searching for his sons. His actions, however, led to the disturbance of the crime scene, potentially undermining the investigative process. In the subsequent years, suspicions within the local community persisted regarding Schlittenbauer, fueled by his peculiar comments that were deemed suggestive of knowledge exclusive to the perpetrator. According to information documented in the case files, local teacher Hansi Blager noted Schlittenbauer visiting the remains of the dismantled Hinterkaifeck in 1925. When queried about his presence, Schlittenbauer reportedly mentioned that the murderer's attempt to bury the family's remains in the barn had been thwarted due to frozen ground conditions. This assertion was construed as evidence of Schlittenbauer's intimate awareness of the environmental circumstances at the time of the murders. However, given his status as a neighbor and familiarity with the local terrain, this statement might have been an informed assumption. An additional conjecture centered on Schlittenbauer, perpetrating the murders subsequent to Victoria's purported request for financial assistance for young Joseph. Prior to his death in 1941, Schlittenbauer embarked on a series of successful legal actions, securing judgments for defamation against individuals who labeled him as the murderer of Hinterkaifeck. In addition, the investigation into the murders involved the examination of several other suspects. These individuals, though not as prominently featured, held various connections and speculations surrounding the case. Their roles in the narrative of this perplexing case offer additional layers to the mystery, shaping the diverse landscape of suspects. Within a span of less than a year following the gruesome murders and subsequent investigation, the entirety of the farm was razed to the ground. This act of demolition unearthed supplementary pieces of evidence, among which was the discovery of a concealed mattock within the attic. The Hinterkaifeck murders remained a chilling chapter in German history, a puzzle that experts and investigators couldn't decipher. Despite countless efforts, the perpetrator's identity remained veiled in darkness. The pages of the case files have been closed, but the questions still echo, and serve as a haunting reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, forever leaving their mark on history as a testament to the horrors that can unfold within the tranquil corners of our world.